tape that we'll play last, and I will just remind all of us in the letter that went out, it basically said, "Be happy, for unto peace and rest." When I get trouble and I look through books to find things to read that help me, and I found some things that I'll start out with, and it just so happens to be from a guy named Bugalasa, Leo Bugalasa, who came to an awful lot of it. It says, when one is fully functioning as a person, death is neither threat nor horror. Rather, it serves as life's greatest ally. Death tells us that we must live life now in the moment, and that tomorrow is an illusion that never comes. It tells us that it's not the quantity of our days or the hours or the years that matter, but rather the quality of the time spent. Every day is new, every moment is fresh. Time has no meaning, and it itself is useless unless we choose to give it significance. Moments pass swiftly as eternities dependent on our state of mind. Death also teaches us that the impermanence of all things and things change. To be attached to things or people, both of which will surely vanish, can only bring despair, for eventually one is left with only a handful of dust or a frail memory. Life that is free of this attachment lives on and makes no demand as the moment lasts. I was reading Jonathan Livingston Seagull, a book that I've got a lot of solace out over the years, and if you've ever read Jonathan Livingston Seagull, but the seagulls came to take Jonathan away, and one of the things he said when the two silver eagles came to get him was that, quote, "We're from the flock, Jonathan. We are your brothers." The words are strong and calm. We've come to take you home. We've come to take you higher. We've come to take you home at last. I have no home. Flock, I am an outcast. And we now fly at the peak of the great mountain wind beyond a few hundred. I can lift this old body to great and newer heights. But you can, Jonathan, for you have learned. And the time has come for another to begin. Life has shined to you across all your life, so understanding lights the moment. They were right. He could fly high. It was time to go home. Jonathan said, "I'm ready. Let's go home." And then Robert Kennedy, eulogy by Ted Kennedy, there's some great words. It says, "My brother need not be idealized or enlarged in death beyond that what he was in life. He should be remembered simply as a good and decent man. Saw wrong and tried to right it. Saw suffering and tried to heal it. For those of us who loved him, and who take him to his rest today, pray that he was us, and what he wished for all others will come to pass." And his famous quote was, "Some men see things as they are, but say why. I see things that never are and say why not." And I think that's pretty much to death. Sad moment for it all. We've all been touched by his life. And that's mine. Anybody else? Would you like to read something or something you'd like to say about that?
I just wrote him a little note last night. To my dearest Papa, I long for your smiling face, for you to hold me in your arms and tell me it will be all right. I'll always remember your funny stories and smile when I think of them. You have touched my life in so many ways. Thanks for all the special time you spent with Matt, especially teaching him how to hammer. He loves you so. He told me, 'Don't worry, Mom, Papa's all right. He's in heaven.' You are so special to him. He's only 7, and he has so many wonderful memories of you. I hope you are at peace now. I will miss you so, but I always will be your little chickadee. And I will try not to be sad, but you know what a wimp I am. I love you so, Vic. See you in the funnies."
Anyone else?
I just wanted to tell him that I wore this shirt because he bought it for me for Christmas. And Papa loved it. And it's because of all the gold in it. And we all know how he painted everything in the backyard gold. And that's why I wore it today. And I told him, I said, "I'll see you in heaven, Papa. You're in a good place."
My suspicion is we will not still find some things painted gold back there. We just have to talk to
We all
them.
need
And he said to me, "Did I think that the road to heaven was going to be in gold?" And I said, "For you, Papa, I'm sure it would be." And he I said, besides that, probably the angels will be blaring horns. And he said, well, God, I hope they don't do that because I wouldn't like that. And I told him, you could just tell him, hold it down. He laughed, that crooked little smile. He says, okay.
I got news for you.
How you feeling? Oh, I can't complain. That's what you always say.
I talked to Papa at Christmas. The last thing he said to me was, "Well, Hawkshaw."
You're funny.
He always called me Hawkshaw.
They had a sale just before Christmas on cans of gold spray paint, and
Did you pack up?
I went up and bought some, and Jeff said, "You're as bad as your grandfather with all this gold stuff around here," because I have a bunch of gold the gilt frames and mirrors and things like that. He says, "You're as bad as your grandfather." He says, "You're going to be painting everything gold."
Remember that time he painted he painted everything
floor
gold.
mats.
Amanda kept saying, I gotta grab it up and we painted it gold. We looked down in the backyard one day and one of the trees were gold.
All the flower
Just
pots
about
were always
crashed out,
gold.
yeah.
The bird bath didn't even go up.
The only guy in the world I ever saw cut down a tree and paint it gold every cut it down.
You know, I've never been about to like it times. Looking for the right time for you. I never look at a time without seeing them. Even better than
And for those of you who've not read the letter that Mom's sending out, makes a very interesting comment in there about Dad doing inventory. Dad's last 2 days. For those of us who were here in town, Dad and I don't certainly don't mean to exclude you and Danny as part of that. It would have been the same thing had you been here.
Well, I had told him that we talked to Deborah and Danny.
He did an inventory and he was missing one, and that was Margie. And he said, "Where's Margie?" And Margie went down.
So is that Margie on the phone? I saw. Is that Margie on the phone? He had just talked to Steve and Matt.
But as soon as Margie went down and saw him, it was like the inventory was over.
It's okay.
Yeah, I hadn't seen him either before. He got real sick. He was coming in and out of consciousness, but when he did wake up, he saw I was there and kept reaching for my hand. The tear came from his eye. You could tell he was happy to see me before he
I
left.
did that when I saw him.
And then he was like in a really comatose and I didn't really want the kids to go see him because that isn't like he was.
But that's not how we'll remember him. Though,
Yeah.
you know?
And they wanted to go anyway, and they were right. And he knew they were there. And he heard Vicky's voice when he was really bad. And he just, smiled. It was unbelievable that he was hanging in there to hear the last of us,
And I'm also glad that one of us was there when he did die. David was there.
That's right.
So
I am
there was
too.
somebody with him for a while. Anybody else? Any other comments?
Well, he was always real nice to me. He always come over. He was a nice man. And the last time I saw him, Christmas Eve, I said goodbye, and he says, "I'll be seeing you."
Yeah.
That's why it's been such a pleasure knowing someone like that and to plan all these little things that he said, It's so nice to be able to express yourself because so many people can't. I want to, a few years ago when I was living back east, my mother and I had gone shopping. I picked up this skirt and I said, "This is a really great skirt." And Mother said, "I think Papa had a hand in designing it because it was splattered with gold paint." So, my mother loved Papa dearly.
And
she did send her condolences.
Well, we all have backyard memories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watermelon, pomegranates, guavas,
Watermelon.
Yeah.
Watermelon.
tangerines.
Every time you go over there, you would go pick out the watermelon.
Uh-huh.
Go down, pick up watermelon.
We had to eat it out in the backyard so we
With the
get
salt.
seeds everywhere. The salt.
Salt shakers.
I wanted to say to Nana that I'm glad that we have Nana. And Papa was so fortunate to have Nana because she loved and cared for him for so long. And when the times were beyond tough times, she hung in there and took care of him.
I don't think any of us understand the trauma of the last 18 months of Dad's life that Mom, who opened that door, never knew where it was going to be life or death.
So when we say things that we love Papa, we love you the same way.
That's right.
We'll be there for you.
Absolutely,
Yes, we
man.
do.
We'll be there for you.
Anytime, any minute, any place.
He was so lucky to have all of them. He loved all of you very much.
Well, we were so lucky to have you.
Well, Dad, I'm behind the camera.
Papa.
But it rained all the way down here.
And the sun's out now.
And now we're here and the sun's out.
Beautiful.
I knew it would be.
That's the way you were. You brought the sun. And I love you.
Ozzy said that the last words my mother ever spoke to me were very insightful. As I stood beside her twice a week at her bedside, he took my hand and said, "Peely, what are you holding on to? I let it go. It made all the difference to both of us. We know now we could release ourselves. I did not no longer attention to attach a sense of guilt for her dying with her time, and we both knew it. I think we all said to ourselves, Dad has been, Joe and I have talked about it, Dad has been like Red Fox going away.
Go
since
forever, yeah.
The big one
The
was
big
always
one, Mama.
coming.
Yeah.
I think we all said to ourselves it will eventually come. I think we all said, well, we're ready, it's time for him to go. I think what we all found out, at least I found out for my own self, was that those were all lies. He wasn't ready to go and we weren't ready for him to go. So, why don't we play the tape, Mom, and
Well, before we go, Dad, I'm happy that you chose the way you did, really. Because this way, you'll always be a part of the place that you love so much. You just won't be sitting on a hillside someplace. You'll be part of this valley forever.
And the wind will carry him to Oregon.
I told my kids that Papa was somebody that was always willing to give them his time, give everybody his time. And I told him, even Tony, he's always took Tony, and just a year ago I remember him always walking Tony around.
Wow.
Something he used to tell me every time I come visit with Tony when we were still in Beirut. And we go to the airport and he saying this prayer, he say, May, you brought Joe back to us, and I'm gonna talk to the Lord. I'm gonna hang one more year to see you back in Lancaster. I come visit you, I see Joe and his family with his family, and I'm gonna go. And when we got evacuated the first month, we were 2 weeks, and he had his heart attack and was in the hospital and has been going down since. He always told me I'm gonna hang up one more year to see you and Joe in Lancaster. Come
Okay.
visit you.
Maybe home to see you, huh?
what I don't think a bunch of us understood was November, Chuck? Was it November that he said on December the 28th? I remember the day, last day he decided to take his medicine was December the 28th. So Chuck said, I think in November. So,
Didn't make much sense, but I will speak it to him.
Vicky, he told me something a week before he went. He told me I look to the time when Vicky come visit us from one time to the other because she puts a love in my life.
and her visits start becoming very little. But I still look forward for him. He loves you so dearly.
I love him too. Still do.
He always, every time we sit together, he tells me about you and the ways he used to tease you.
Yeah.
He was teasing
You
us
always
until the
teasing
last
me.
day about getting David out of the hospital. When David was born, we didn't have any money, so
That made
him
him
and-
laugh.
him and Mom gave us enough money to get David out of the hospital. I guess he'd still been there, but it hadn't been paid. Still been,
He said
still been
things
trying to
have-
pay it off, I
Things
guess.
have really changed, he said. It's been a long time. I said, yeah, but Papa, I can remember the time you got David out of hock, and he just grinned and laughed. That's right, we did, didn't we?
Well, you were talking about your gold paint. We had a gold paint at our house too. We all did. It has been.
Betty, Chuck, and Terry, I think that I call all three of you for different, for one very important reason. I think that Terry, certainly Dad had a special place for you, and I think you had a very special place for him. I think Betty and Chuck, that these two have kind of been your parents for the last
I was
10
gonna
years. So
say since we lost Mother and Daddy, they are separate.
No.
And they've always been there for us.
I felt like that I was much closer to Papa than my own father because of the way he was. Because he could be affectionate and talk to you about things, and my dad couldn't. And I think that all of us in the family had a special place in our hearts for him, a special bond with him, just a unique bond with every single one of us. With all of us, I think with Chuck and Betty, with the family and Terry, I know he did, you know.
He had a gift of making each person feel special.
He did, that's for sure.
You know, what was so special about him is he could do it without making anybody feel that they were the favorite.
Yeah.
Well, he wanted to entertain you and make you laugh. Up until the end, he wanted to make you, tell you a funny story and make you laugh. I like that.
When I get to the point, I went to listen to the story.
Yeah.
And I never heard the same story twice.
I think the tribute that Bill put in the paper for him really summed up how we felt about paintings that he loved so much to do all the time. He sat in the backyard for hours and paint.
I think
that was
Mom
great.
captured Dad was one of the unlucky people in the Depression who, with an 8th grade education, did remarkable things, but had the brain power to do whole bunches of things. He was a frustrated, what was your word, Mom? He was a frustrated inventor,
I said he could do a little bit of everything.
visionary.
He never had anything perfected, but he did a little bit of everything. It was a frustration to him because he could play the guitar a little bit, he could play the violin, he could play the piano, but he could never get any farther with it. And it was very frustrating. And I tried time and time again to try to get him to take lessons, and he never would do that.
Matthew wanted to have a Coke float in his honor, and I remember he always,
Oh, yeah.
the other night, the first night when he died, he wanted to have a Coke float.
Yeah, every time Maddie come over, he'd have to have a Coke float with him.
So we have a Coke float.
There's the ranger wanting to see what we're doing right now.
He's escorting somebody else out.
There's a lot of people coming.
You know, I'll never forget one of the first times that I had met all of you. And he had a birthday, and Vicky said, would you like to come over? And I said, yes, but I didn't have anything. So I looked in my little goodie closet, and I found this men's shaving set, perfumes. So I gave it to him, and he just loved it. And I didn't know. But a few months later, I'd seen him again, and he says, Betty, where did you buy that? I says, the Broadway. Oh, and then in the years to come, I found out how he loved to go around to the store to return things. And I'll never know how if he ever got the money back.
Oh, he got, hey, if you can take back pork chops that are 4 months old.
Well, I think, no,
you can
anyway,
handle the
I
rest
think
of
he came out better than probably what I paid for it.
Nana said he took those undershorts down back to Sears in the wheelchair because Nana didn't want to take them back. I'm not taking those down. I don't even have a receipt. Went down in the wheelchair, took them back. Nana said she went down to check on him where he couldn't see him. He's ranting and raving. She said, Jack, the only reason I gave the money back is afraid you're going to die right on the spot. Ranting and raving.
That was a,
Yeah,
was
that's
a pretty good little boost too when Papa got that little chair. You know,
Yeah.
it brought him back for a little bit. You know, he really livened up. You know.
Yeah, I often
Well, I
wondered
got
whether or
that
not
for him. That
if
was
we should
good.
have gotten that earlier, whether or not it would have made a
Wait a
difference. But
minute.
you know,
Sure changed things for a while.
I learned something about Dad's state with morphine. Dad actually went into a coma while he was at home. That was not the morphine that they had started administering. It was he had actually gone into a coma. So his health had failed to that point. It wasn't, you know, that he was so built up with morphine. One of the things that I've read, it's in the thing that Dad wrote. He feared so much a convalescent home, and he had written something that he'd given to me, and it said, you know, all they do is dope you up, and then you just go there, and then they die, and no one cares. And so it's in terms of how he chose to die, and the strength that Mom showed, and bringing it home, and even towards the last 2 days when Kay and Mom were out looking for a convalescent home, I doubt very seriously if any of us would ever been able to do that as long as we lived. I think we could talk about it, but I think at that moment of truth, because he was so incredibly lucid until Wednesday of last week, he never lost that. I was in the hospital with him the last time we rushed him over there, and I came back to see him the next day, and someone said, "You've got to get up and walk, and you've got to do that now." And I remember his eyes flashing, and he said, "You have chosen the wrong person to tell me I have to do anything." If I ever wonder where I get that from, I saw that in his eyes, because I could just see that scene, and they had chosen the wrong person to tell him that he had to do anything. We probably now have, I guess, what, about 35 or 40 urinal bottles that he collected for some reason.
Never knew any of them were they.
Every time he went to the hospital, he brought them home with him.
We got all that plus the
I
insurance.
think I had
so-
10 over there.
Well, I'll tell you something not a lot of you know, and that's that when Dad was really bad, it looked like he was going to have to go into a rest home. And like Billy said, you know, at that time it was, well, it's a decision that we're going to have to make. Let's do it. And Billy called me and asked me if I wanted to be a part of it and take the responsibility off of Mom, and I said yes. And at that time, May volunteered and says, "No way. You take the bed and you bring it up here, and we'll put it in the front bedroom, and I'll take care of him, but we're not putting him at home." So she did it on her own. She wasn't going to let him go in the home either.
Well, I don't think any of us would, and Nana kept him for so long, caring for him all by herself, so that he wouldn't have to go in home, and he knew that, and he appreciated that in his own way.
What about me when you told me? I'm like, no way. And then you're trying to tell me, well, this one's kind of nice. No, it isn't. I've never even seen it. None of them are nice. Forget it.
Well, I think until you cared for somebody with that intensive care like that you
But
know,
you have to
there's
think of Nana too, because
there's
Nana.
decisions sometimes that you made, but we didn't have to make that, and that was good. Nana didn't have to make that decision.
Well, the last 3 weeks, and then, you know, the last 3 weeks of Dad's life, or probably the last month of Dad's life, Dad was a different person, I think, to Mom than he had been.
No doubt.
No doubt. I think that he.
Yeah, believe it or not, he got real nice that last
No, he was. I had a long talk with him when he was in Kaiser last time, and he had some genuine things to say. You know, and he just made a decision that, you know, he told me right out that he was going to start looking after everybody else, and he was tired of people looking after him, and it was time for him to look after everyone. And he was genuinely speaking of you. You know, we talked directly about you, man. And he was.
Well, that was our conversations with, you know, the burial and all that kind of stuff. It was, got, I guess, last year probably Dad pretty much confided to me what he wanted done. That's the reason we're out here today. He had a very, as you said in that letter, he had a very direct idea of what he thought was right and proper and what he wanted to do. And I say that's the reason we're out here, and that was a choice that I think that that some people may be critical of or whatever, but it's exactly what he wanted to do. This was the place he wanted to be, and this is the group of people he wanted here. So, in that sense, all that's happened. But the other side of that coin too was he was worried about, he wanted to make sure he didn't spend any more money than he has to, because he was worried about Mom. So.
It wasn't a case of him worrying about spending the money. It was a case that he wanted Mom taken care of. And I don't know how many times he's told me that.
That's when he cried the last time in the hospital. I was talking to him about that we were going to take care of Nana, and don't worry. And a tear came from his eye.
That was the note he wrote Christmas Eve.
You know, where all you people are real close to him, and I'm on the periphery, and I see it, it's easy to understand your feelings, but you got to realize that those feelings go way outside of that. Jack never met a stranger. He'd walk into a room, in 10 minutes he's got every kid in the room following him. You can see it every time. So his influence goes a long ways outside of this circle here. And the way he talked to the kids and related to them, he'll continue to go a long ways for a long time.
That's right.
I'll never forget it.
He said that himself. He said he was talking about how hereditary and how some of his, you know, parts of him are in all of us, you know, in all the Cooper family.
Yeah, I can't play cards now without calling the money white money.
Proof that, you know, that you have an influence on your kids, because Brian looks so much. I mean, his son looks so much like him.
Well, I'd like to say for my kids, I'm sure Joe feels the same way. The last 2 or 3 weeks is with Dad, I couldn't be any more proud of you. You were there. You were helpful to me. It would have been much tougher without you.
It's just amazing to me that when I was 14 years old, he was so dumb.
They brighten right up, don't they?
And the older I got, the smarter he got. He must have been reading books.
I'll never forget, I was having chili one night, and I asked Matt if he would like some. He says, "Oh, is that Papa's chili?" And Matt, we all know, eats like a little bird. But he always, you know, he
I made it the other
remembered
night.
that. He
Well,
so
last
that's
week
how
I made it. He said
he affected him.
he tasted. He said, "Pretty good, but it's not Papa's."
That's it.
He was on the counter, dead serious.
I've eaten chili all over the
Pretty
world,
good,
and it never will
not
be.
Papa's.
It's so funny how they all remember
Like Mom's
these.
apple pie.
I have that recipe, but
Oh.
That's what always thrilled him so much too, so we're that.
When we were building our house, she said, well, I'll come up this weekend if I can do something. He didn't want to come up there and just stand around. And I'll never forget the 2 weeks we were on strike, and we were getting close to getting done. It was over 100 degrees up there, and I didn't even want to be up there. And he was when painting. He'd get up there and he'd just work all day long. I could barely take it. He was a workhorse. I'll never forget those 2 weeks. I spent a lot of time with him.
Yeah, I think if we decided, as I look around at the workaholic side of this family, I think I pretty well know where it comes from. I think that Mom and Dad always had 2 or 3 jobs, or as long as we were growing up, even when times were tough, it was. I say my biggest bitch about, I told this to Mom and Dad, my biggest bitch about my parents, I guess, both of them, was that I don't have anything to bitch about. So when people start talking about their parents, I can't get in that circle, so I can't play. So I don't really have anything.
Same here.
I think someone said, I think Joe said the other day, if I have to go back and choose a unit, I'd pick the same group.
I remember when Dad first went to Beirut, man, and Papa came up there. Papa, the first thing he did was say hi, played with the ducks for a minute, then jumped on that Kubota and just went to town. And he didn't get off until the sun went down. So I know he's up there now plowing up something.
Yeah, he's got it arranged.
He's got himself a tractor up there and he's just going to town.
He up there now. He up there now doing what he can do.
He's gonna landscape something.
Well, I hope they do it right, because he will talk to us about it.
You know, when we went down to the funeral home the other day to get the remains, Deb and Dan and I walked out to get in the car, and all of a sudden there was such a strong odor of paint, you couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And after we got back, we walked out there and says, "What do you smell?" And there was absolutely no smell.
No smell.
It was so strong, it was just like somebody you just walked in the garage and it was painted.
Because I know when we were all kids, you can always remember going into Papa's garage, and you'd either smell clove gum or paint.
Or turpentine because he's cleaned his nails.
Remember they
Nails.
stole most of that clove gum.
It might have been 90 years old, but we ate that clove gum.
Both.
I didn't want you to go down a beer.
No, actually, when he stopped drinking, when half pint sales went down dramatically. He would not buy a pickup truck that you could not put a half pint down inside.
Yeah.
Brian and I used to go back there and ransack all through the cans and everything else
Looking
and
for the
find
clove
gum.
gum.
And if you dropped it, it'd be all over 50 pieces. Brian and I'd be sitting there chewing it up.
He was crazy about it.
Well, I hold him responsible for I think clove gum is one of the most wonderful things that you could put into your mouth and chew up.
Yeah, but she was doing it for different reasons.
But I appreciate.
He did drink some bad booze. I mean, that stuff he drank when he was, and you know, Dad's
Billy,
Thought he had us all fooled.
Billy, you've got it wrong. Dad didn't drink. Robert did all that when he came over to visit.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, when he'd find the beer cans, you know, where he'd hide them, he'd say, you know, I just stagger on to him, be cleaning up the yard or something. Yeah, that's where Robert hid that up.
I watched Robert drink
Just whoever happened to be there last and put it there. I didn't, you know. He just would have been there last as long, did he?
Remember when he asked Joe on one of the visits to cut the ike, he used to have this ike pen, and he told Joe to cut it down for him because he doesn't want it anymore, and you can't believe how many little bottles we found.
he never bought more than a half pint.
And Joe said, you see where Daddy hides them?
You should have seen what was at the top of the patio, you know, that used to be covered in ivy. And he'd throw the cans up there. Bottles or whatever it was. And his nephew was out there one time and he couldn't figure out. He says, "Why do you throw those up there?" He said, "So Opal won't know I had it." Come in the house just cockeyed and you know, no, hadn't had a thing. Nothing.
I learned to keep a bottle of 10 high at the house, and because he drank 10 high or old granddad. But periodically I get some stuff from the embassies. So I had things like Grand Marnier and very good booze and all this kind of stuff. So one time I came out and he had taken Grand Marnier, 10 high, what's the one that's got the blue bottle in it, the bourbon?
Crown Royal.
Crown Royal. And Johnny Walker Scotch and mixed it together and said, "Boy, that goes down smooth." You know, and I said, "Well, you know, any one of those is pretty good if you mix that 10 high with it." But I also found out one thing is he had an absolute sense that he was one of the. There are two things I've learned when I do teaching, and if I buy donuts, nobody will ever take the last donut. There's always one donut left, nobody will ever take it. When Dad drank, he never took the last shot. There was always this much in the bottle left. He never emptied a bottle in my house that didn't have a little bit left.
Yeah. So the next. Remember Joe when he'd come up to your house? Joe'd go out there, you know, and he had up there just like a bar, you know. Well, it'd just come up missing, you know.
Yeah, but
It just wouldn't always be there when we'd go home that he had left.
yeah, but that desert's hot. It evaporates up there a lot faster.
Yeah, you might want
I don't want you to get
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for making that sun come out. Shine down on him this final day. Now we know he's up there with you. This will always be your valley, Dad. It will always be your valley.
have any gold spray paint?
With me.
No, I'm serious. We could spray rocks.
I just thought about that.
That made that.
Shoot, I have 3 cans of it at home.
Dad, I don't know if you can read it or not, but the grandkids wrote it for you. It says, "We love you, Papa."
Forever.
Forever. And they do.
Like I said, Papa made the day shine after all.
I don't think there'll ever be a time when somebody says Shelter Valley that they won't remember you. You weren't here last night when everybody was sitting around reminiscing about riding the tractors. Going to the things that happened out here. The wind blowing the place away. For some reason, I think you're hearing us. So bye, Dad. Someday we'll all be up there with you. Dad, I thought this tape was over. But we walked over here. We didn't pick this spot. We just pulled off the side of the road. And after everything was all over, we walked over here. And this sign is here. And it says Ghost Mountain. So that's where you are, is your own Ghost Mountain in Shelter Valley. We didn't pick it. We didn't set the sun up. The man upstairs must have told us to come in here. The man upstairs must have been the one that set the sun up for you. But somebody told us to come here. And that arrow points right where you are. A lot of people have trouble with cremation. But knowing how you were, the way I feel is if I would have put you in the ground someplace, we'd have tied you up. As it was, when we scattered those ashes, it made you just as free as you could be. So rest in peace, Dad. You'll never be forgotten. And right there is the only spot of color on that hillside.